My name is John McShane. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I have been practicing law for 41 years, and the whole time in Dallas, Texas. And of course, it's hard to capsulize a 41-year legal career, but I'll just kind of hit the high points. The first 10 years is sort of my outlaw period. I basically practiced law drunk for the first 10 years of my career. I was a lawyer at 23. Until I was 33, I practiced primarily criminal law and represented a lot of drug dealers, a lot of killers, a lot of robbers, and pretty much hung out with that element and drank a lot, and that didn't really get me anywhere. My values were money and power and control and merit badges and accolades, and got a few of those. And actually, considering the fact that I was impaired, at first had a pretty successful practice. Things came crashing down in 1976. The state bar sued me for disbarment. I had gotten a little bit too close to some of my drug dealers and outlaws. Plus, I had become very impaired and would take people's money and not show up for court and not return phone calls and basically not do anything. And so the state bar had had enough of my routine, and they sued me for disbarment in 1976. In December, actually December 13th of 1976, I checked into the Adolphus Hotel in downtown Dallas, and my plan was to commit suicide. I had what I really now believe was a divine intervention, a spiritual experience that day, and I decided that there was a purpose for my life, that I was meant to do something with my life. And I turned myself into treatment and recovered from alcoholism, and actually have gone 32 years now without a drink of alcohol. I had to get through the problems with the state bar, but once they realized I was sober and I was unlikely to reoffend, they eventually dismissed the disbarment suit and let me go. And I started looking at ways that I could reinvent myself and really try to be the type of lawyer that I'd actually wanted to be when I started law school in 1964, and that's, I wanted to help people and I wanted to do good in the world. But when I got out of law school, my values were by then shifted to a complete antithesis of what my values had been. And my friend Susan Dykoff talks about how law school does that to us. And in Steve Kiva's book, which we'll talk about later, he recounts the story of the guy running into an old friend, and they chat for a while, and the fellow had just graduated from law school, and the old friend said, "My God, what did they do to you in that school to make you come out this way?" And Susan points out that entering law students have the rate of clinical depression of the general population, and coming out of law school they have 3 times the rate of clinical depression of the general population. And so that tells us something about what they do to us in law school. But anyway, I can't blame law school for my debacle. A lot of it was my own character defects and a genetic predisposition to substance abuse, and a lot of low self-esteem and a lot of shame. So anyway, I got myself squared away, and I started thinking, okay, the first 10 years of my law practice was really a disgrace. I was an embarrassment to myself, to my family, to the profession, and how can I do this another way? And the first thing that I started doing was trying to become as competent as I could, because I knew that whatever I did, I wanted to finally be a good lawyer. For 10 years, I hadn't really, in those days they didn't have mandatory CLE, and you could kind of coast along, and that's what I'd been doing. So I started attending everything that I could attend to become a good lawyer. And I didn't have any money, but fortunately, the people that were organizing seminars and trainings knew that I was trying to rehabilitate myself, so they would give me scholarships and allow me to attend even though I couldn't pay the tuition. So in those first few years, I just was constantly in seminars and trainings and workshops to hone myself to become a good lawyer. And I think that was really important. That was a foundation. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do with this? And in order to figure out what I was going to do with this skill, I did a lot of inner work, a lot of work on myself. I was in various healing programs, I was in therapy, I was in various support groups, and in 1978 I co-founded an organization called Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers, which was a support group for lawyers that had any type of impairment, substance abuse, addictions, gambling, mental illness, whatever. And that was really a wonderful thing for me because it enabled me to get real with brother and sister lawyers and talk about what was authentic and what was real. And that sort of was a springboard for me to start having what I call courageous conversation. Conversations about things that other people don't talk about, our hopes and our fears and our dreams and our aspirations and our shame and our self-loathing even sometimes. So the work I was doing on becoming a good lawyer and the work I was doing on John McShane coalesced, and that was really the genesis of becoming a lawyer healer. And the first thing that I started doing as a lawyer healer was in looking at the way the legal system responded to substance abuse. And in those days, the legal system just had a revolving door approach to substance abuse. People got DUIs, and if they got multiple DUIs, they went to the penitentiary, and multiple drug convictions, they went to the penitentiary. And I started thinking there had to be a different way. So I started getting people who came to me for DUIs and drug and alcohol related offenses. I started getting them into treatment programs and then using their treatment to present in the trial in mitigation of the punishment. And all these people were repeat offenders who maybe had 3 or 4 or 5 DUIs, and they were headed to the penitentiary because in Texas at that time the second offense was a felony. They still didn't do too much on the second offense, but third, fourth, or fifth offense you were going to do some serious time. And so these repeat offenders found their way to my office, and I would find ways to either, if they, and these were days where it was a lot easier to get people into treatment. There were treatment centers everywhere. Insurance was pretty liberal. A lot of people had insurance through their employment. The treatment centers were pretty good about giving scholarship beds to people who didn't have any money, and if nobody had anything, we had some fairly good community resources in Dallas through the Salvation Army and through some things. So if somebody wanted some healing, you could get them into some program. And if nothing else, you could just have them start showing up every day at Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous and start developing a healing community that way. So what I would do is document the healing, and in Texas we have an anomaly that most states don't have. We have jury sentencing. And so and at that time we had the legendary Henry Wade as our prosecutor of the Roe versus Wade fame, and it was a very difficult district attorney's office to deal with, but it really didn't matter because we had an absolute right to have juries for sentencing. And so I started presenting these recoveries to juries and having some remarkable results. Even people who had killed people in drunk driving accidents, I would get rehabilitated, and I had a number of trials where the jury gave them probation when the government would not offer me anything less than 10 years.